The New South Wales Government has rejected Ausgrid's request to bring in the Defence Force to help clear debris from the weekend storms. An extra 100 clean-up personnel will be deployed instead, joining 600 SES workers already on the ground. Joining me on the line is Ausgrid Chief Operating Officer Trevor Armstrong. Trevor Armstrong, thank you for your time. How many homes remain without power?
Good morning, Laura. This morning we have still 22,000 customers without supply, so we've restored 118,000 from the peak of the storm.
And when do you expect the remaining to be restored?
We're working hard and we've got, as you've pointed out, additional resources to help with the tree clean-up. And on the basis of that all coming together, we're aiming to have all our customers with supply by the end of Sunday this weekend.
What's the main impediment at the moment?
The difficulty we've got is the amount of trees that are across our power lines. Where our expertise is putting the power back on and turning customers on, but the difficulty we've got is just the size, and this is a natural disaster, the amount of trees that are down. And they're not just down on our power lines, but they're down on homes and driveways and across roads. And for us, getting additional help to just cut those trees away, in some cases lift them with cranes, is going to help us enormously in getting our job done.
This event was certainly one that took us all by surprise, especially if you copped that rain over the weekend. Is it Ausgrid's employees, would they normally clear trees, or would the SES in previous events have done that job for you?
No, we utilise contractors, and we have our own tree clearing contractors that go around managing trees and the interaction with the power system and making sure there's proper clearances. So we have our own contractors, and we have arrangements with other contractors from interstate to help us with removal of trees. But the difficulty with this storm and the scale of it, it is a natural disaster, is just the amount of trees that are inhibiting our ability to get our job done, and that's why we've asked for some additional assistance.
But why don't you bring on more contractors and pay them rather than calling in the Army?
Certainly, we have asked additional contractors, and we've got people coming from all states, including Tasmania, to help us in terms of putting the power system back. But vegetation is the difficulty we've got. And on that basis, we did put our hand up with the government. New South Wales Government went to the emergency management team and said what we could do is ask for some additional resources. We're ambivalent whether SES or Army. And pleasingly, we've got SES turning up in about 30 minutes to our Tarman depot to be inducted and to help us.
But why do you need to call in the Army? You're a private company. Why should taxpayers have to foot this bill?
Taxpayers won't foot the bill. We will pay. Our expectation is for these additional resources, like contractors, we will pay for them.
Yeah, but what about the SES? And, I mean, the state government has said no to the Army now. Is that right?
My understanding, and I've read that like everybody else has in the news this morning.
So you haven't heard officially from the state government. Is that correct, Trevor?
Our team may have heard directly from the government, but certainly I'll be following that up after this call.
Okay, so, but you, at the moment, have still got that request in for the Army, and you haven't heard officially, as far as you're concerned, from anyone in state government rejecting it. You've just read what we've read this morning.
In part. The important thing, though, is I've said, and Ausgrid has said, we're ambivalent. We've got the extra support, and pleasingly the government's responded by helping us out with the SES. So the fact that the Army's not coming is not an issue for us.
Yeah, you said you're ambivalent to what kind of support you get from the government. Why should you need any? You're a private company. Why can't you just pay contractors? I mean, why should the taxpayers have to pay for anything here?
Well, the taxpayers won't pay. We will pay. Is our expectation.
If the Army is called in, how do you read what you would pay for the Army to be called in?
My understanding is, and my expectation is, that we would have had to pay for that resource. Yes.
So and what did you budget for that?
These things are not necessarily budgeted for in the classical sense. Certainly, our organisation is capable of paying for these things. There's no issue on that front. and part of the regulatory regime allows for these things. And if they're of a certain scale, then there's avenues for us to recover the cost.
I have not heard, Trevor, and I'm happy to be corrected here, I've not heard any circumstance in which the Army has been paid for and been called in. Is there a precedence you're looking at here?
I'm not sure about that, but in discussions early in the piece around this, there was a discussion that we would be expected to pay. So I'm happy to take that up and come back to you.
Okay, well, keep us posted with the response you get in any official channels from the state government. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks very much.